Hey everyone, it's John with How to Film Weddings, and today we're going to be talking with an attorney. I have with me a good friend, Paige Hulse, and she's here in Tulsa with me, and I just wanted to bring in a professional. We're going to do this from time to time, just answering questions that you guys might have, answering questions that she's getting just about everything going on in the world of the law. So without further ado, Paige Hulse.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me here today. So like you said, my name is Paige Hulse, and I'm an attorney for creative entrepreneurs and small business owners. I work here in Tulsa, Oklahoma with, I would say, my good friend, John.
Yeah, good friend. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
So off to a good start other than that, John. I do everything from contracts to business formations to intellectual property, such as copyrights and trademarks for creative entrepreneurs.
And you have a website. Tell me a little bit about just like what your website is, what you're trying to do with it, and how you can help our viewers.
It's shopcreativelaw.com, and that is just an online resource for contract templates and, well, right now, mostly contract templates for creative entrepreneurs.
And we got connected through a wedding group here in town. I looked through her website, and after talking with you, I realized I was doing pretty much everything I could be doing wrong with my contract, and so we had you last year go through our contract and basically revamp the whole thing, and now I know that I'm protected. And it took me 10.5 years as a business owner to know that I was protected, and there were so many things over the years that I still have the scars on my backside just from messing up, and wish that I would have met you sooner. And that the Creative Law Shop is so cool because they're just templates after people have, had you build them contracts, things like that. You've been able to like turn those into templates that can really help people. So be sure to check that out. That's going to be in the notes, the links below. So we'll link that up so people can find you and all that good stuff. So I was going to talk to you about 3 things that just really need to be in all of the wedding videographers' contracts.
First and foremost, your deposit or retainer paragraph. And there's a lot of debate about whether or not that should be called a deposit or a retainer, and people get really opinionated one way or another. I actually, now in all of my contracts, I just list it as an initial payment, because at the end of the day, a judge, worst case scenario, if you end up in a courtroom in front of a judge and the judge is sitting there trying to decide if they should uphold your contract or your non-refundable retainer, whatever you might have called it, they're not really going to care if it was a deposit or a retainer, generally speaking. They're going to care about whether or not that was an equitable payment that you required. Okay. So what I mean by equitable is they are not going to allow you, the judge wouldn't say that it's equitable for you to ask for a 50% retainer, non-refundable retainer, before you've done any of the work. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they're going to look for some sort of language in the contract that shows that the client, when they signed the contract, knew what they were agreeing to and why they were agreeing to it. So what I mean by that is you should always have a line in your contract, in that paragraph that we're talking about, that says something along the lines of, we spend a lot of time before the wedding day itself preparing for the event, whatever it might be. You also understand that we are blocking off this date on our calendar, and so you're preventing us from making income on this same day from another client. And so we require a 33% non-refundable deposit or retainer, or just initial payment to secure this date. And the second thing I'll say to that is people ask me all the time how much that amount should be. I say no more than 40%. I tell all my clients to at least do 3 payments of 33%. So a non-refundable 33% retainer or deposit, or 25% is even better. So that would be issue number 1. Do you have any questions?
No, yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of us, like when we're talking about retainers, deposits, I mean, we don't know, and a lot of times we're just trying to get people to book, and it's like whatever we can. But I know that after we talked and, we changed ours to just like a specific amount, and then some payments leading up to it, and adding like that paragraph in just about like, we're putting a lot of work into this before, just in case somebody does cancel, that they're not asking for that entire amount back is super helpful. But yeah, just the amount per, that kind of thing is always a question that I'm seeing in the groups that I'm in. And, it's like, how much should you do payments? Shouldn't you do payments? And all that good stuff. So, I mean, it really helped us kind of, clarify
Yeah.
retainer, and then we're going to do these payments leading up to the wedding.
Right. And as long as, and the other deal too, I'm assuming that most people watching this, I'll just assume are wedding videographers. A lot of times you're the first time that somebody has paid probably thousands of dollars for someone to come video their day.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to go an extra mile and explain to the client what you're asking of them and why. And so that's another reason why it's important in that paragraph to say, we don't just show up on the day of, we actually do work ahead of time, which seems so intuitive to you. But.
Right. And I mean, we know how much work goes into it, but
Exactly.
you know, if somebody cancels and you do end up in that worst case scenario where you're 30 days out from the wedding and somebody cancels and wants all their money back, is like, where does that, you know, and having that written out in the contract is going to do the most to protect you, showing a judge or showing, you know, someone that like this was very clearly defined. We're booking June 1st. We can't book June 1st now because of this. We're spending this much time leading up to it. This is how much, you know. And so that's the thing that we want to do, is protect ourselves as much as possible if somebody does cancel.
Exactly. Well, that kind of leads us to the number 2 thing that I always want people to make sure are buttoned up in their contract, which is we've been talking about, but that's your cancellation provision. So not only do I want you to have that retainer or deposit paragraph defined very clearly and properly, but I also want you to have a very meticulously defined cancellation policy. The things I would look for in there are, make sure you are specifying how much notice they have to give you, so they can't just, and how they can give it to you. So they can't just text you the day before the wedding and say, hey, I'm going to cancel the wedding tomorrow. Surely that wouldn't happen, but weirder things have happened. So I usually tell my clients to say something like 30 days written notice, and then we'll have a notice provision in the contract too. So they have to actually like write it out and tell you 30 days ahead of time at least that they're canceling. And we also will list out things like how much money can be paid back, or how much money they can actually have refunded. If you have, the way I tell most of my clients to do it is have, let's say, 4 sets of payments. So that initial retainer, and then a payment due halfway point, and then a payment due the month before, maybe a payment due the week before. If they cancel the week before the wedding and they've made those 3 payments, then I say all of those payments, every payment is non-refundable. And that's kind of, it's going to depend case by case, but that's what I usually tell people to go with.
So the way we have ours set up, and you can tell me, you know, based on what I'm saying, if this is something you recommend or not, but we do usually $1,000 per service, video or photo, that's due upon signing as a non-refundable retainer is what we have in our, and then we do 4 equal payments from the month, 4 months out, 3 months, 2 months, all paid in full 1 month before the wedding. And 25% of the balance each one of those. So 30 days before the wedding, they're paid in full. We've noticed that a lot of the cancellations that have happened over the years for us happen a couple weeks before the wedding. Bride finds out the groom wasn't, you know, being a nice guy, or, you know, they decide to call it off, they get cold feet. And at that point, if you've received all of those payments, it's going to be a little bit harder for them, you know, to get that back, as opposed to like if you do one $500 retainer and then they owe you $8,000 the week of the wedding, they don't pay it, you know, there could be some.
I think from a business perspective, that's absolutely the way to do it. Plus, just on the other, so 1 point for John. On the other hand, too, I think just as somebody that has gotten married, it is really painful to have to write checks, you know, for everybody, all of your wedding vendors the week of the wedding. So just on that note as well.
Very painful.
I like the way you've set it up.
When we talked earlier, we were talking also about IP. And just about that. That's another thing that when we were kind of pre-talking about, you know, making sure that's in the contract. You know, we've talked to the retainer versus the deposit. We've talked about the cancellations. Tell me a little bit about IP. Like, is the video my property? Is it their property? Legally, what do we have to do?
Yeah, so that would be the third major area that I would want you to go look at in your contract right after you watch this video. And IP, meaning intellectual property. The minute that you create a video, you are creating a legal work of art. That's not how the government phrases it.
It is a legal work of art.
Sure, we'll say it's a legal work of art, hopefully.
It is.
And so you own the common law copyright to that work the minute it's created. The minute you snap the photo, the minute you press, I was going to say the shutter button on a video camera, but I don't think that's right. We can
button.
edit that out.
No, we're not editing that out. It's
Okay.
going in there.
Anyways, whatever button you press to turn the camera on.
Just the big red button.
Yeah, just the button.
Yeah.
You are creating a work of authorship. And so you own the common law copyright to that. In my opinion, there are not many scenarios where I think that it's important, or I think it's required for you to give them the copyright to your work. If you're filming maybe if you're filming Beyonce's wedding, she's probably going to ask you to to give her or assign her all of the copyright rights to it. Other than that, I don't think that it's important or relevant at all. And when you assign those rights, you're what's called a work made for hire. So if you're watching this right now and you don't know what your IP provision in your contract says, go look and see if it says work made for hire, or if you retain all copyright rights under the US code. If you're a work made for hire, or if that's what your contract says, then every time you're creating a video, that means you are giving the client ownership of that work. What that means on a practical level is if somebody comes along and either copies you or takes the video and publishes it as their own, which sounds weird, but people do that all the time. If you have given away your rights to copyright ownership for that video, then you can't do anything. You just have to sit there and just take it. But as a business owner, I would caution you to consider requiring that they credit you anytime they're using your work on social media, because social media is basically, that's your portfolio. And to me, I see quite a big benefit in making sure they do credit you, so that anybody watching it can say, oh yeah, John filmed that wedding. I really liked the video. I want to hire John.
Yeah.
But again, that can just be written in your contract in a half a sentence.
I think that's great. I really like when we walked through all of that, in our contract, I just felt like forever there was like a monster in the closet almost, where it was like, I think I'm doing this right, but I'm worried, I've had, different people cancel on me and I've been burned. We'll talk about that like in another video, but just having these things in place, the peace of mind that I have with my contract, knowing that it's taken care of, has been like really great as the business owner. Yeah. So if anyone out there is needing help with this, again, we'll have the link to her website below. We'll put some notes. You can ask questions below. But she's going to be on from time to time answering questions. If you do want to get in touch with her, again, everything will be below. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we will talk more. If you do have any questions, please let us know, and we'll see you guys in the next video.